Welcome to SSUC. Welcome to this morning as we honor and celebrate November 11th, and as we gather as community to be together, face to face, in ways that might bring meaning to our lives as we celebrate all that we are and who we are together. This is a place where we attempt to be a safer place for all to gather, to ask spiritual questions, to seek what we need from community, a place for all, regardless of age, of ability, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity, regardless of whether we're single or coupled, a family, or somewhere in between. We are all welcome here. As we gather this morning, we're going to share a few things that are going on in the life of the congregation, and I want. As we gather this morning, we honor the land as we do every time we gather in this space. We acknowledge that we sit now on Treaty 6 territory, land of the Cree, the Métis, the Dakota Sioux, and many other nations. And we acknowledge that we are here, entrusted with this land, as we simply borrow it from the future generations. And so as we meet, we acknowledge our gratitude. Today we're going to light this candle in celebration and honor of really a decision made this week in the United Church of Canada that our friends and our sister congregation at West Hill United Church in Scarborough, Ontario, meet this morning with a weight lifted off their shoulders. They meet and celebrate that their minister, Reverend Greta Vosper, is no longer under review, is no longer being threatened with being excommunicated from the United Church for her understandings and her beliefs. And we celebrate what that means for the diversity of theological thought in the United Church of Canada. We rejoice in what that means for us as a community, for your ministry team in Nancy and I, and we rejoice with our friend Greta and with our sisters and brothers at West Hill who this morning are throwing a party. And so we light this candle. We light this candle to celebrate, to recognize that we are all welcome, that we all share a piece and a part of who we are as a church. And we celebrate, too, by sharing words that are shared often at West Hill United Church, the prayer that they have adopted as their own, based and inspired on the prayer of St. Francis. Let us speak into these intentions this morning. As I live every day, I want to be a channel for peace. May I bring love where there is hatred, and healing where there is hurt, joy where there is sadness, and hope where there is fear. I pray that I may always try to understand and comfort other people, as well as seeking comfort and understanding from them. Wherever possible, may I choose to be a light in the darkness, a help in times of need, and a caring, honest friend. And may justice, kindness, and peace flow from my heart forever. if anyone would like to come to our Time for All Ages, up to this carpet right here, now is the time. We're going to tell some stories. Well, my story I left over here. Okay. I want to tell you a story called Two Goats on a Bridge. We're going to tell this story twice, just because for fun. Between two mountains lay a narrow bridge, and on each mountain lived a goat. And some days the goat from the western mountain would cross the bridge to graze on the eastern mountain. And some days the goat from the eastern mountain would come down and cross the bridge so he could eat on the grasses of the western mountain. But one day, both goats got to the bridge at the same time. These goats met in the middle, and neither of them wanted to get out of the way. "Move off," said the western goat. "I'm crossing this bridge." "Move yourself," bawled the eastern goat. "I am crossing here." As neither would back up, and neither could go forward, they stood glaring at each other for a long time. Then at last they locked their horns together, and they began to push. And they were so evenly matched in strength that they succeeded only in pushing each other off the bridge. They were wet, they were furious, and they stomped off to their homes. Between two mountains lay a narrow bridge. Have you heard this before? On each mountain lived a goat. Some days the goat from the western mountain would come down and cross the bridge to graze on the eastern mountain. And some days the goats from the eastern mountain would come down and cross the bridge and graze on the grasses of the western mountain. But one day both goats began to cross the bridge at the same time. And the two goats met in the middle, and they said, "We have a problem." "So it seems," said the other one. "I do not want to back up," said the western goat. "Neither do I," said the eastern goat. "The bridge is narrow, but perhaps, if we're both very careful," added the western goat. "We could pass without falling," said the eastern goat. "We can try." And cautiously they squeezed past, each being careful not to overbalance the other one, and so the goats passed peacefully and went on their way. Well, that's the end. The first story had the goats being very strong in their heads. They didn't want to change their ideas. They didn't want to change their minds. They didn't want to change the way they thought about what they were doing. And in the second story, the goats were a little, well, we could say they were nicer, right? But they were willing to maybe change their thinking. They were willing to move. They were willing to think in a different way. And what they did that day in the second story is they made peace. Peace doesn't have to be about countries and wars. Peace can be about the tiny little things we do every day, like how we cross a bridge, like how we pass somebody in the hallway, like how we talk to someone when we meet them. Little tiny things is what peace is about. and we can all do those things. So, you know what kind of goats we want to be, right? We want to be those peaceful goats that can find a way. We're going to sing a song. This is a new song. You may not have ever sung it before. And we're going to get some help because we need lots of help. And we're just going to try it. There's lots of repeating of words in this song. So once we kind of get the hang of it, we can sing it. And then every verse changes a little bit. So we start with, I will not live with fear. I won't live with fear. I won't live with fear, fear, fear. I won't live with fear. You kind of get it, right? And then it keeps going. Oh, I won't live with fear, fear, fear. I won't live with fear, fear, fear. I won't live with fear, fear, fear. I won't live with fear. I think you kind of see where this is going. And then every time we sing that, we have to think of two things. So the first one's about fear, but then the second one's about something better. The second one goes, because I believe in hope. I believe in hope. I believe in hope. I believe in hope. I believe in hope, 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 hope. You're going to get it. Okay, so are you ready? Here's how it goes. Pam, I don't know how you want to do it, but let's do it. Is that it? Can we go twice that fast?
I can go twice that fast.
Yay! Great. We're going to go fast.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
I will not live with fear. Fear. I won't live with fear. I won't live with fear. 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 I won't live with fear. Oh, oh, oh. I will live with fear. Fear. Fear, I will live with fear. Fear, fear, I will live with fear. Fear, fear, I will live with fear. Nice job, because I believe in hope. I believe in hope. I believe in hope, hope, hope. I believe in hope. Oh, 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 I believe in hope, hope. Hope, I believe in hope, 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 I believe in hope, 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 I believe in hope. I will not live with hate, I will not live with hate, 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 I believe in hate. I will live with hate, 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 I will live with hate. Oh, 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 what is I leaving? Oh no, hate, hate, I will live in hate. Hate, I will live with hate. Hate, hate, I will live with hate. I will live with... Hold on, I believe with love. There it is! Love! I believe in love, love, love. I believe in love, love, love. I believe in love. Love, love, I believe in love. Okay, I will not live with war. War, I will live with war. I will live with war, war, war. I will live with war. Oh, 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 I will live with war, war, war. I will live with war, war, war. I will live with war, war, war. I will live with war. I believe in peace. I believe in peace, peace, peace. I believe in peace. Oh, 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 I believe in peace, peace, peace. I believe in peace, peace, peace. I believe in peace, peace, peace. I believe in peace. Woo! We did it! Yahoo! On this, the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War, we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to honor this day in a very particular way, in a very honest way. And so we thank the Silvertones Choir for helping us to honor this Remembrance Day with their words and with their music, and we'll hear them now. This is a poem entitled Making Peace by Denise Levertov. A voice from the dark called out, "The poets must give us imagination of peace, to oust the intense, familiar reality of disaster." But peace, like a poem, is not there ahead of itself, can't be imagined before it is made, can't be known except in the words of its making. Grammar of justice, syntax of mutual aid. A feeling towards it, dimly sensing a rhythm, is all we have until we begin to utter its metaphors, learning them as we speak. A line of peace might appear if we restructured the sentence our lives are making, revoked its reaffirmation of profit and power, questioned our needs, allowed long pauses. A cadence of peace might balance its weight on that different fulcrum. Peace, a presence, an energy field more intense than war, might pulse then, stanza by stanza, into the world. Each act of living one of its words. Each word a vibration of light, facets of the forming crystal. These are insights of a 20th century American poet. May we find wisdom for our living.
This reading is from selected verses from Romans 12, 9 through 18. Let us love not only in word and speech, but in truth and action. Let love be genuine. Despise what is destructive. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with mutual affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Contribute to the needs of others. And be inventive in your hospitality. Rejoice with those who rejoice, and weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Don't think yourself better than others or wiser than you are. So far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. These are the words shared by early Christian communities of the first century.
May we find wisdom for our living. Today is a day when we remember. That is the name of the day, Remembrance Day. We remember all kinds of things today. We remember wars. We remember those we've known who have fought in those wars, or perhaps family members that we did or did not know that had fought in those wars. We remember those who have given their time, their lives for their country and their ideals to give us this kind of freedom and the very lives that we currently enjoy. We remember those who served in the military and continue to serve in diverse ways to defend values, to aid the world's nations, to stand beside and in front of the defenseless, and to give their own freedom and sometimes their breath in service of their commitment. At the same time, we don't live only by civic duty. We are more than just citizens of Canada or citizens of Western democracies or members of organizations of shared interests. We are also planetary citizens, brothers and sisters with each and every human being, regardless of nation. And we are, by nature of being here, seekers of spiritual wisdom. And it's this particular association that demands something very complicated from us on this day. Not just remembering and honoring, but also calling ourselves and others to a better way. Calling for a time when remembering will be that of joy rather than sorrow. Calling for peaceful solutions and ways that honor the sacredness of life, the destruction of violence, and any and all words and actions that might lead to that violence. Call them whatever we may. And because working for peace is a lifelong endeavor, because working for it on a global scale is an overwhelming and monumental task, we must think about it like every one of our other precious values that we hold, whether they're on that wall or not. We have to live it personally and locally for it to have impact in wider circles. There's a story that Jesus tells about sums of money that are lent to various individuals. You may know this story. It gets called the parable of the talents or the parable of the lent money or any number of names, but this lender lends 3 individuals sums of money. One of them invests it and turns it into a great deal. One does something productive with it and does some good and sees a return. And one of them digs a hole and puts the money in it and doesn't retrieve it until the lender asks for it back. And ultimately the lender does return, ask for the money back, and speaks to them and indicates to those that did something, to the first 2, even if they did something small, that they had been faithful in small things. So thus larger things would be in store for them. The point of that little spiritual story is to say that we start small. but we do something. We seek small successes, and those small successes accumulate one on top of another, mine with yours, yours with each other, ours together, and they begin to make a difference, larger and larger difference. And before you know it, we are impacting not just ourselves, but our families, or maybe our communities, or maybe public policy, or maybe nations. We are to be about investment in the small things or the large things, as long as we are doing something. We build peace one small word and action at a time. Thanks to the wisdom of the early Christian community, we get this very practical list of things to do. To outdo one another in showing honor. Imagine that, a competition for who can show one another honor. To contribute to the needs of others and be inventive in our hospitality. To rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. To live in harmony with one another. And to not think ourselves better than others or wiser than we really are. This isn't rocket science. Basic human decency and gifting each other with dignity is what that is. Although, the news reminds us daily that it's perhaps not so intuitive after all. And so we'll read passages like this again and again to remind ourselves in the world of the little things we can do to build peace. Today's poet, Denis Levertov, offers such a poignant and powerful way of describing this kind of homebrew peacemaking. It's like the language of learning, she says. It's like the writing of a poem. It happens one word, one phrase, one image at a time, not prefabricated, not fully assembled out of a box, but learned as we go, on-the-job training sort of construction. A line of peace might appear, she says, if we restructure the sentence our lives are making. And it can't be known except in the words of its making, as they are made. This is how a cadence of peace might pulse then, stanza by stanza, into the world. May this peace be with us as we remember today, as we honor, as we do more than that, as we work at creating a language of peace. Within our words, within our decisions, within our lives, it's a different language. In whatever words we use, may that language be one that builds, step by step, word by word, syllable by syllable, a way to change the very direction of our world. Because if there's one thing we know as spiritual seekers, is that one act and one word can make a difference. May we work to make it so in a world that desperately needs it. In so many ways. Much gratitude for the ways that we are community together, for all the ways that we act and speak, for all the ways that we do with one another the work of peacemaking, community building, and loving. For those of you who give automatically and we don't see your acts of giving, we thank you. For those of you who slip an envelope in the box at the back of the room, we thank you. For those of you who give online and do so from your homes or your phones, we thank you. In all the ways that we give to this place and to the world, our gratitude. We close our today with some intentions for peace. I'll speak some words of prayer, and as we conclude that time, we'll share some words with one another together. So let us take a pose of meditation, of prayer, of quiet, and let our words and our lives be our prayer. On this day, let our living and let our very lives thoroughly remember. Remembering as putting pieces and people back together. Firmly in our minds and hearts, we establish those loved and lost. Firmly in community, we establish people in their rightful places. Remembering is as beautiful as dismembering is heinous. So let us be about including and remembering the broader community across the generations, fitting their lives, their example, their values and humanity in the context of our own. Let us affirm the intimate connections between all people in mystery and ordinariness of life. As cemeteries and cenotaphs will be visited, the pipes play laments, and speeches of national pride and place be spoken, may we be engaged in the art and solidarity of remembering and living fully, as to not miss one incredible, juicy, aching, throbbing, tearful, happy encounter and moment of our lives. Remember and live now will be our prayer. Recall and move ahead with history, memories, and tradition guiding us into fresh living. We remember all those grieving today. May their tears be known and received. Let sorrow move into gratitude, understanding, and healing as well. We remember all those who dutifully and unselfishly served and serve others in so many ways. We remember all whose lives and living have inspired, have set free, have guided and grounded us. In our words, thoughts, and actions, in our conflicts amidst change and upheaval, in times of calm, beyond this ism and that ism, we commit through some words, ancient words, to the work of peace as we speak them together. If there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. If there is to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart.